Why is it that having anxiety be all like? I don't know about you, but anxiety for me was like constantly hearing the boss music, this ominous, scary, impending doom kind of music in everyday life situations where there were no bosses. And it was like my brain was making up a bunch of problems that didn't really exist and was reacting to them, all scary, and making normal everyday things seem terrifying as my heart was going like 1,000 miles an hour in my chest. Well, if it's like anything like that for you, I'm going to show you exactly in this video how I healed my anxiety and the crazy story behind that without any sort of doctors or medications or the normal things and the crappy things people tell you, like, well, you know, other people in the world have it worse than you, so you should just chill out. So for the rest of this video, I'm going to put up this little breathing app, and if you're actually experiencing anxiety right now or anytime in the future and you're just looking what to do about it now, I want you to sync your breath with this as you watch this video. Something else that will really help you is I'm going to put a link below from the artist known as Marconi Union, and this track is actually scientifically proven to relax the mind and release anxiety as you're listening to it. So you're going to want to keep that handy for the next time you experience an attack until you know how to handle it and follow the tips in this video. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I healed my own personal anxiety, and this was done again without doctors, without any pills or anything like that. So I started working as an entrepreneur in 2007, and it was really, really interesting for me because I had a lot of anxiety about money. Whenever I would try and think about like being successful or doing something really cool, I would get sometimes this really panicky, agitated feeling in my chest, and it would just start to go faster and faster, and I could feel my brain just like really freaking out and reacting. And depending on what was going on for me at that moment, it could last anywhere from like, I don't know, half an hour to sometimes even for days. I would experience the same thing, just lingering, driving me crazy, feeling like my whole life was in this panic. And it became to a point where it was this ongoing problem, and I just didn't really know what to do about it. Like, you know, I would sometimes just have to like give up my dreams in the middle of it. You know, I had a lot of mental programming growing up. A lot of you probably can relate to this, you know, money doesn't grow on trees, or whenever you quoted the cost of something you needed money for me, it was like every year we needed $40 to register for school, and it was always like, how much? Oh my God. Like every unexpected expense was a catastrophe. And this was kind of my programming growing up. And so I had this kind of subconscious just way of relating to the future and being successful as really kind of like scary and terrifying. And so for me, that was always like the trigger, is whenever I would try and take a step in the right direction for me and like improve my life would just be like kicking my ass. Now it was probably around 2010 that I first discovered ayahuasca, and it's really, really interesting because one of the things I actually learned through the experience is how to heal it without ayahuasca. So that's what I wanted to share with you, because I know a lot of you will be super interested in the sacred plant medicine and stuff, but also those of you who aren't going to go down the same journey as me, I want to show you some like real world, very practical things that I learned from my experience that will also work in yours. So I discovered this ayahuasca stuff, and if you've never heard of it, it's considered the most powerful psychedelic known to man. It's been used for thousands, 10,000 years, possibly more, in the Amazon jungle for healing all sorts of things. And I remember the first time I actually went down to the jungle and went there, you know, they tell you in the experience when you first get into it, if you have any difficulty, just ask the head medicine spirit of ayahuasca. And I remember asking, we call this spirit Papatua. I said, Papatua, why do I have this anxiety? Now for me, it had been, I don't know, 27 years of life, 28 years of, I couldn't even remember not having that anxiety. It was such a part of my existence. And I remember I started to almost like just amplify this anxiety in a way that it just stretched me and terrified me in a way that I couldn't even imagine in normal everyday waking consciousness. And about 45 minutes later, I remember asking the head medicine spirit of ayahuasca, I said, Papatua, why are you doing this? Why are you kicking my ass? And at that point, the spirit said to me, not kicking your ass. You asked why you have this anxiety. I just showed you every life reason that exists why you have this anxiety. And I said, well, don't I need to know why I have it in order to let it go? And it's really funny because the spirits will often use your personality. So mine's kind of, quirky guy humor. So it said to me, fuck no. And so I realized in that moment that I didn't need to have this great understanding of how my anxiety got to be there. I just had to have a better idea of what I wanted my experience to look like go forward. And at that exact moment in time, which is one of the strange experiences on psychedelics, I had what felt like to me like a planet-sized energetic orb just form in my stomach, and I could feel it was just this mass of anxiety. And I suddenly had this urge to take a giant shit. And like ayahuasca can make you go 0 to shit at the speed of light. And I remember sprinting to the toilet, and I was like, please God, like no one be in there. I have to shit myself immediately. And I remember as soon as I sat down, I had to go immediately. And so as soon as I sat down though, I couldn't go, and I realized I'm trying to push this thing out that feels like a planet through, a butthole that's probably yay big on a huge poop. And I remember saying to the spirit, I said, Papatua, I have to, how am I supposed to get this out of me? And how do I get rid of this anxiety? And I remember, I'll never forget, the spirit looked at me, and again, they use your humor, said, hey, you just asked to be rid of it. The Drano is your fucking problem. Now, the very, very, very next day, we had gone through, we were about to start another ceremony, and I all of a sudden just realizing how intense what I had just signed up for, and anything could happen, and how scary it was be. I was suddenly at a 10 out of fucking 10 anxiety, freaking the fuck out. Now, this was in a very sober state, and I had this sort of apparition kind of appear to me at this time, and said to me, hey, just take a deep breath and relax. And I remember thinking I'm in this 10 out of 10 anxiety, and I was like, breath and relax. I'm fucking losing my shit here. And I said, just take a deep breath and relax. And so I went, and then it went, and it was freaking out again. And the spirit said, okay, another one. And I went, okay. And I took a deep breath, very slow and deliberate, something like this, just to give you an example so you can see it. I went, and as I had this very giant deep breath, I said, now what? And the spirit said again. And so I did this a bunch of times, and I eventually said, what do you want me to do? And it said, now do it 100 times in a row. And so I decided to do this exercise of 100 slow deep breaths and to pull myself out of it. And what was really, really interesting is that I found that by doing that, it didn't take my 10 out of 10 anxiety and just suddenly, it was magically better. But what I found is I could take it through a couple of breaths from a 10 to a 9. And I could take a 9 to an 8. And I could take an 8 to a 7. And then it would flare up a little bit and it would go back to an 8. And then I would calm myself back down to 7. And after eventually doing this after 100 breaths, it wasn't completely altogether dissipated, never would happen again, but it was maybe a 3. And I'm like, a 3 I can deal with. It's the 10 out of 10, just boss music. Everything is scary. I'm going to die right now. What have I signed up for? Sort of terrifying fear. Now, what's really, really interesting is that I've never had a full-on anxiety or panic attack since. And it's really, really interesting because when you get the upper hand on it energetically, it is not that that trigger goes away. Very, very different. I still have that sudden agitated feeling in my chest show up in life. One of the things that was really, really interesting that I learned as I became more of a professional speaker and I got to speak on stages is I would experience a really fast, excited feeling. Except I noticed in my mind the feeling in my chest was almost identical, but in my mind I was telling myself the story that I was really looking forward to this. I was excited, almost like when you go on a roller coaster and you go over the hill, and it was just such a profound, looking forward to it, amazing experience. And I noticed the difference between anxiety and excitement is the feeling for me physically was the same, but the thoughts were going completely different directions. And so obviously we're there in the positive. I didn't necessarily need to fix it or to do anything. I was happy with that story that was going on in my mind. But when I was in the 10 out of 10 panic, my mind was going, oh my God, you're freaking out. You're losing it. Oh my God. And it was fear, 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 and this really sort of agitated thing. And I noticed that by really taking a moment and breathing, you can at least slow that fear down, and eventually through a series of breaths, almost like working an accordion, get it to a slow and manageable state. And what you'll find is it won't be kicking your ass and it won't be a panic attack. And as you practice this, and I'm not going to tell you it's just going to magically fix you in one time of doing this, but what you'll find is that you can get it, hang on it in anywhere from like 3 to 30 seconds. So I actually still experience the precursor to what used to be my panic attacks, but now I just go, okay, just chill out. You don't want to feel like that. It's like, relax, heart, slow down, slow down. And so the experience I have is 3 seconds of mini light and freak out. And so that's how I was able to heal my stuff without drugs and surgery. Now, a couple of little things that I found that really helped, and these are very kind of strange tips, is if you're experiencing anxiety, it's the mental freak out that is actually the hardest part to deal with, not the physical uncomfortable feeling. If you find you can actually, and yours may not be in your chest, you may experience it elsewhere, but for me it was always centered in this area of my body, is it may be an uncomfortable feeling, but if you just feel it without the mental narrative, you'll find it's not actually everything your mind is making it out to be. It's just an agitated feeling in the body combined with a mental narrative. So one of the things that really helps the mental narrative is just grab a little ball and play catch. Now, if you have somebody else to play catch with, it really helps, but if you don't, just play it with yourself. And what'll happen is it'll force your mind every time you throw the ball up to concentrate on catching it. And as you concentrate on catching it, it'll take your mind out of that story. It's very strange. I don't know how it works. I read it on a forum one day, but I promise you it works. Another thing that I've heard from a lot of people, and is a real trigger and something you'll want to get control of, is really the thoughts you think before when you go to bed. If you're an anxious person, you'll usually replay your life, go like, oh, why did I say that? Why didn't I do this? I can't believe I did that. And you tend to like mentally beat yourself up right before you go to sleep. Well, what happens with those thoughts? They go into your subconscious, they germinate, and guess what happens? Right, the next morning you wake up beaten up on yourself, which is not where you want to be. So a much better thing is, in order to really get rid of anxiety, what most people don't realize is you have to actually replace it with a new state, because you can't just be nothing. And so what I found is being in a joyful, just chilled out, happy, easygoing, sort of flowy state is a much nicer place to be. And one of the easiest ways to do that, this won't be instantaneous, but as you close your eyes at night, those last 5 minutes, especially as you drift off in bed, just imagine all the things going right tomorrow, or appreciate all the little things that are going right for you now. And I find it's the easiest things to appreciate are the little things. It can be as simple as just, hey, this is a really nice pillow, or I'm happy to be laying in a bed. There are people in the world who don't have that. And what you'll find is if you switch the mental narrative in that, you'll put a totally different set of thoughts, beliefs, actions, and feelings into your subconscious, and those will germinate into those feelings of joy and calm and peace. And what you'll find is those will begin to, over time, bigger and bigger and bigger, replace where your anxiety used to be, and you'll bring just a you that is so much easier to deal with this. So I hope you like this video, and I hope this really helps you to get a hold on your anxiety as well. If you're like me and you're an entrepreneur, then you're going to want to watch this next little part of the video, because I think it'll be extremely helpful to you. So if you like this video, and you also want to discover what is my life purpose, why am I really here, and then be able to actually get paid to do this for a living with people you love, traveling the world, being free, and then seeing how Sacred Plans can totally speed up that journey, there's a link for you below this video. Now I've pinned it in the first comment as well as in the video description, so it's both places. And when you click it, it will bring you to a page that simply asks for your name and email and that free training. It's 39 minutes long. It's amazing. People have told me it's changed their lives just from that. It gets started as soon as you register, and again, it's totally free. And of course, don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and click the notifications. Never miss another video. So may the force be with you.